Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the ABJ Podcast. This is episode 31. It's crazy. That's way too many. I can't believe I'm banging them out this much. Two a week is insane, and I know I'm a crazy person. But today's podcast can be really, really cool because I'm having some of my best buds on, and we don't say goodbye. We say welcome back, but we'll get to them in 1 second. And make sure you check out the links below to support everything ABJ. There's merchandise, there's Patreon, there's donations, whatever you want to do. And if you can't do that, I get it. Times are tough, money's tight, eggs are too expensive. You can always just hit that share button, hit like, and subscribe over on YouTube or any audio podcast platform you're listening to. Would help out a lot. I'm on the grind right now for getting my equipment, so this summer I can start doing the content I really want to do. And some of these podcasts will be done on location, which I'm really, really excited to start doing. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, so we're on the grind for that. So any support would be amazing, and we very appreciative of. Yeah, links also below for Adina and Philly Mike, still injured wrestlers on the scene who could use any support they can get. So if you guys can go check them out, they have merch, subscription services, as well as social media you can go follow, as well as my guest links are below, so you can follow them. I believe they gave me their link tree. I have to look at it real quick. I believe that's what they gave me. Or you can just follow them on all social media at Welcome Back Wire. So without further ado, let's bring those boys in. Let's bring in the boys of Chris and Mario of the Welcome Back Podcast, formerly of the IWEP Network, RIP. Cue the trumpets. It's dead and gone. But here they are. They were very good representations of that network. What's going
What's
on,
up?
boys?
Welcome back. I'm Mario.
Welcome back. I'm Chris.
There you go, man. So I initially heard you guys podcast. We met through mutual friends in the crazy world of professional wrestling. So it all ties back to wrestling somehow. And I listened to the podcast, and I didn't know Mario from a hole in the wall. I never met him, never heard of him, nothing. And I kept listening, and I was like, boy, I have a lot in common with this guy, you know. And it's funny because I feel like I'm on a journey as well of trying to better myself and fix past trauma and ways of my mental thinking of how to handle things and how to go about things and opening up more and having conversations. And Mario's very open about that on his journey as well in this podcast. And I really related to him. And I feel like I became best friends with you guys, and you don't even realize it because your podcast is just so relatable. And it's two buds who are essentially reconnecting and just keep spending time with each other through the power of the internet. From college, and for a while there, you guys were so far apart from each other, but you guys sat down weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, some points, because podcasting can be treacherous at times. But through life changes, through moving, through hardships, through pandemics, you guys kept this podcast going and kept your friendship alive. And it's a really good buddy podcast, and I encourage everyone to listen to it because you will become friends with them, and you won't even know it. They won't even know it because you're gonna fall in love with them and their stories and who they are as people.
Well, that means a lot, man. Thanks.
Yeah, my brother, he has a new relationship. He's engaged, and she already just knows so much about me because she started listening to the podcast. And so like in his previous relationship, we weren't really connected at all, like that deep, just through like hangout stuff. But his fiance now is just like, she's like already my sister. So it's like
awesome.
it's like a straight line to friendship.
Now there's going to be a lot of references throughout this podcast because I do listen to their podcast, and there's a lot of things they say or do. So a lot of things you're going to be like, what the hell does that mean? And you're going to have to go listen to Welcome Back to get these references. I'm sorry. That's just a plug for them to go listen. But are you guys at that point where you're going to give her a kiss on the cheek? Are you guys at that point yet? Or
we're getting there. We're getting there.
She would love it.
It's like once you open that door, there's no going back. So what I do if you throw the cheek kiss and it's like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I guess Italians, it's like a thing for Italians is the cheek kiss. That's like a common thing. I think it's a dying art though. I don't think a lot of Italians do it anymore. I think it's like an older generation Italian thing.
COVID didn't help.
No, not at all. Remember when we used to spit in each other's mouths? They were good days.
Man, I miss it. I miss it.
I miss those days. You share lollipops. You're like, try this one. But yeah, and so kind of take me through the listeners. I know we've had this podcast before on different ones, but this is a new platform, so we're treating it as such.
Yeah.
But where did you guys meet? How did you guys start your friendship?
Well, we were in college when we first met, and we came in the same class, so we kind of like would have similar classes, and we kind of knew each other peripherally. And then I was a RA for an apartment building, and basically I got to hand pick my apartment, so I was able to just fill. It was like 8 guys or something. I got to just fill the room with whoever I wanted.
And apartments are like the holy grail. Like the
That's
dorms
right.
suck. You want the apartments. You're putting in like they have like this ranked system based on how long you've been on campus, and like you can put in and like
Yeah.
hopefully you get enough points with your friends that you get the apartment. But Chris was just like he got it.
Yeah.
Well,
So I
real
got to
quick, I
pick 'em.
want to backtrack because I think for me this is important. Maybe not to you guys because you guys are a little,
Mhm.
but like this is. I don't want to say it's not normal college, but it is a different type of college.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just a small college.
It's like a Christian college, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's different. I
Sure.
because I feel like when you go to when I say normal college, it's usually debauchery and party and drinking and
Sure.
lots on premarital sex. And here it's
Right.
probably a different environment.
Yeah, there was none of that in my room. I can't speak for the other rooms, but my room was relatively clean.
Yeah. Well, you keep a tight ship.
That's right. And so my girlfriend at the time, Sam, was getting close to Mario's girlfriend, and so I had this connection. I knew the guy kinda, and we kind of started getting closer, and so I needed to fill my room with people that I wanted to like know, and a few of them were close friends already, but other people I was just putting in there because I thought they'd be a good hang, and Mario was kind of one of those, and it turns out I was right. He is a good hang.
Now, was it love at first sight? Did you guys have any rocky tribulations, or was it always just smooth sailing the entire time?
Well, I would say at first sight it was good. I mean,
Yeah.
we certainly got along at first.
Yeah. And what helped was as soon as we moved in the apartment is when my appreciation of pro wrestling started to pick back up because I'd kind of fallen off for a few years after high school. And that like became one of the center pieces of the apartment. That and Malcolm in the Middle was like the thing that was always on our TV screen.
That was a good show. Do you ever see the deleted scene of Breaking Bad, the very last episode?
Oh yeah.
When he
No.
wakes up and he's essentially back in Malcolm in the Middle, and he had a huge dream that he was a drug. He made drugs.
That's awesome.
He tried being Heisenberg, and then his wife's like, "Get off me!"
Yeah. That was literally the deleted scene of the ending of Breaking Bad that everyone was laughing about. Like he woke up and he was the quirky dad. He's like, "You're never gonna believe this. I was selling meth." But yeah, so go through like I don't want to. I'm not gonna really dive into all the religion talk. I know, but like, was it always like big and for both of you growing up, and like the reason you went that path going to college, like picking that for a school?
Well, funny you say you don't want to bring up religion because this is our semi-annual asking you, are you ready to submit your life to the Lord?
Yeah. I think it's funny because everyone, I have, I guess, a very big stance on where I stand, I guess, with my theology or my lack thereof. And then they're like, well, how do you like, I'm like, some of my best relationships with people on this earth are the most devout Christian Catholics or Hinduists, or I get along with people who support a religion, but they have to be open-minded as well to like, so I get along with you guys really great. Tim, you know what I mean? Like he's really big in his faith. So I think it's like a fun dynamic to talk about, not to argue or anything, but just because
Yeah.
I never really, I would have never in a thousand years ever dream of going to like a Christian college or even know what that is about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's kind of fascinating to me about having that faith and stuff. Like I don't know. I think it's kind of because you guys are very open-minded about it. Like you're not hating people for things. Like you're not judging. Like you probably live what you should be as Christians better than some of the older generation Christians do. And I think that's where my hang up and my turn off is with a lot of it.
Yeah, I've yet to dabble into yelling at my server after service, but give it a few more years. We'll see how I develop. Now, my parents had like a divorce when I was like in middle school, and then
This is where we hear the air horns.
Yeah,
and
you want the
welcome
reggae horn there, yeah?
Yeah.
it's part of the story. And then as I was getting into high school, my dad remarried and we moved. And then now here I am in like a town, and I'm not old enough to drive yet, so I don't have a car. So like 20, 30 miles doesn't seem like a big deal when you have a license. But when you're a teenager, that they might as well be in California. I'm not going to see my friends really anymore. And so eventually you meet a couple people, you have a hunger for connection and family. And so you find it in different opportunities. And I found my way into a church building. I think I was actually in my senior year of high school. And you get connected with the pastors. You start reading your Bible more. You start studying more. And you kind of get that leading that oh, is this what I'm going to base my whole life on? Is it going to be a backseat passenger like some people, or is it going to be my co-pilot, or am I going to be the co-pilot? And I kind of took that point of making that the center. And if I'm going to follow this thing, I want to know as much about it as possible. And that's kind of what pushed me into the college sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in church, and it was my senior year as well in high school. I had other plans. I was gonna be a music teacher. That was my plan, and I just had this crazy experience with God. What I would say, maybe not hearing the audible voice of God, but I felt like God was giving me clear direction to be a pastor, and so
Chris, give
almost
college all of your money.
Very close to that, yeah. And so I did that, and I kept doing that, and so today I'm a pastor.
Yeah. Now, do you run a church now? Are you at that level, or what? So you're
recently, I was a youth a pastor to teenagers for 7 years. Granted, that my title was youth pastor, but I was doing all kinds of other stuff. It was a big church, so but now I'm a lead pastor of a small rural church. But it's awesome. I love it.
And that church you had to relocate for, and
Yes.
it actually put you a lot closer to Mario.
That's correct. And my family, I'm currently in my grandma's basement. If you can tell, it looks like a basement down here.
It doesn't look like a basement at all.
It looks like a mess back there, but
it looks like a living. I love the wolf blanket over the window.
I was just thinking.
That's the
I wonder
most
if you can tell what
Pennsylvania
that
thing
is.
ever. I love that.
Well, you got the windows aren't insulated, so you got to keep the cold out somehow.
But the wolf blanket, you go to the a local flea market, and it's wolf shit. Love it.
Yeah.
So you guys, when you were in college, you did start a little bit of a pre-podcast you guys talked about professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Did that kind of grease the wheels of later on the start of a Welcome Back?
Yeah, if we didn't start Total Brovas, then Welcome Back never would have happened.
It was incredible.
I never knew the name of it. It's so good.
Thank you.
I still have it in
How is that not on T-shirts and stuff?
I know.
I mean, Total Divas, I don't think is a big hit anymore, but I really think that would be marketable.
I know. We didn't know what we were doing, but I learned so much about editing, and that's one of the things when I look back. Since then, I've done a lot of video editing and a little audio and stuff, and I edit the audio now, and so much of that traces back to painstakingly editing videos at 4 a.m. for Total Brovas.
Yeah, the Welcome Back podcast. I don't want to say it's heavily edited because it comes off when you're listening as it's not.
Yeah.
But man, I don't have the patience for that. I am the epitome of the stand-up comic who started a podcast, who hits record, and whatever happens in that window is what's going out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm in that window, but it's like I said, you guys do an amazing job with that. So you guys were on another podcast for a while, and then Mario joined because you betrayed him and started another wrestling podcast without him.
Mm-hmm,
and then during that, I remember listening to an episode because you guys were very heavily the reasons why I listened to it. I thought you guys were both entertaining. Mario pitched the idea of Welcome Back on the show. And
it wasn't even like a podcast. It was we should start the show by saying Welcome Back.
Yeah, by
saying we'll be right back.
Yeah, and it didn't stick at all. And then you're we're gonna do our own thing and start Welcome Back. And
yeah, we enjoyed the concept of an intro and outro so much we started a podcast around it.
Yeah. It was not the right place. We should not have done that idea in that forum. That was the right decision. We made a whole podcast about it.
I think you guys were 5 or 6 episodes in, and I had a predetermined thought about who you guys were as humans, and I was like, kind of because of association, I guess, a little bit. And I was like, I'm not listening to this podcast. There's no way I'm going to be into this. And then you made an episode, a political episode. And I was like, all right, what better way to find out where someone stands in the world? And I listened to it and I was like, I'm in. And then I went back and listened to the other ones, and I've been listening ever since. So,
Wow.
like
We
I
should
said,
probably do another politics
I was just thinking
one.
the same thing.
Yeah.
We've been putting off, there's this website that I absolutely love called isidewith.com, and it just gives you so many questions. You can answer as deeply as you want and as many as
And
you
it
want.
puts you where you should be.
Yeah,
That's terrifying.
and I take it every couple of years actually, and I hop around occasionally, and I kind of personally, it annoys me that some people don't change positions over time.
Sure.
But I think like especially because now Trump announced his running like way too early, just because the pressure was getting on from the law. But now Nikki Haley said that she's gonna oppose him in the Republican primaries. So like now might be like right around this time, maybe in a couple months might be the time to like encourage people like, hey, before you just pull the lever on who your parents pulled the lever for, and now you do, maybe it's time to take a look inward.
Yeah, because I would say I would normally, I guess, when I would lump people who are religious or Christian into a political spectrum, it leans very heavily one direction. And you guys kind of tote middle, and I would say swerve back and forth on different options and different things. But like, how do you feel now that the Republican Party is kind of going? And I know this is not we're going to lose all of our listeners. Fuck politics, but like, from what I would gather, I would say you guys are very pro in the aspect of like letting people live their lives, and regardless of what their sexual orientation are, they should have a right at things too. And that's not your place to judge, even if it is against religion or religion says differently, because you kind of have that mindset of separation between church and state. But now there's like this whole new political party starting off that wants to make our law based on the book. And that's where I have my huge disconnect with this new, I guess you would say, like third variation of the Republican Party coming out, and they're coming strong.
As I've gotten older, the clearer it's become to me that monoliths don't really exist. Because like I know lesbians who are Republicans, I know straight white men who are Democrats, I know people who are all over the spectrum, and things that like you would talk to them and you'd be like, why are you voting against your own interests? You might even think that, but then you realize that like and it's kind of what you fell into when you initially thought about us. What we would end up being is that it's easy to lump, but once you start parsing through, you realize that there's a lot more distinctions in these things.
Absolutely. We talked about lumping a lot in that episode. That the word sticks out to me. We talked about lumping because, and to this day, I won't say I'm any political party. I'm not completely represented by any of them. And you talked about how faith impacts your politics. And for me, I follow Jesus, and sometimes that means I'm going to agree with Republican stuff. Sometimes that means I'm going to agree with Democrat stuff. Sometimes that means that I'm not going to agree with either, or I'm going to find somewhere in between. But they don't like make the calls for my political beliefs.
Yeah, no, totally. All right, we'll get away from politics. I swear to God.
Dude, politics, religion, and money. They're the things that people say you're not supposed to talk about.
I love talking about it.
That's my favorite things to talk about.
It's the best way to find common ground. I think that's why we have so much division, because people aren't mature enough to sit down and have conversations and just and disagree with each other, but still respect each other. And I think that's intimacy. Where we have a lot of our
people don't want to be intimate, and talking about those things it feels intimate, and people don't want that at all. They just want to text.
I think everyone's number one. Like, I'll even add another category in there, Mario. It should be politics, religion, money, and what's your porn category. You know what I mean? I think they're the four things that everyone should put on the table right away, and just let's get it out of the way. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, you'll feel closer to people if you know that stuff.
100%. Drop that tidbit on your next bar adventure. Just be like, hey, what's your name? What's your favorite category when you go to an adult website? And you're gonna be like, what? Be like, we're gonna bond right here. Because once you get that out of the way, you'll talk about anything.
I funny little side note is I'm on TikTok all the time, and apparently
great way to start fights between couples too. That has happened.
The generation above us, the boomers, no, X is above us, so the boomers above them, Pornhub is always releasing like where people fall into things, what state is searching this the most. And
it's a great cat. Yeah.
And I saw a video recently where they said that for boomers, it's hand jobs.
Yeah, that's classic. That's an old school classic.
And like hot, all
those old fashioned.
Like this Google like hot woman.
Yeah, that's an internet literacy problem.
Yeah. I want a hot woman who gives hand jobs.
Yeah.
Living the dream, boomer. Then they stumble on it's all stepbrother and stepsister thing, and that's just strange.
Yikes.
Don't like that at all.
That seems bad.
It's not good. It's not good. You should dabble just for experimental reasons.
Oh yeah,
just to know what's happening in the world. You know what I mean? Just so your feet are nice and firm on this earth. Yeah. So that's enough of that. So have you guys ever had a moment on the podcast where you didn't really know something about each other and it actually came up on a podcast and you really like, I never knew that about you type deal?
Well, we definitely know. I feel like I know who Mario is. Like I know a lot about him, but hearing how he became that way, like hearing little stories about how he moved like 7 times in his like school age time, and like hearing his relationship with his parents and his siblings, hearing like the little stories about the past that produced the person that I know is that's always interesting. I think that's interesting for no matter how close you are to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's by getting to know the people around Chris personally is what like takes my level of understanding Chris to that next level. Like knowing his wife, getting to know his siblings and her siblings, and even in college, I had an interview with Chris's parents. To like it was for. Do you remember that?
No.
It was for.
There you go. We just did one right here.
You must have forgot about it because I asked you permission
familiar.
to do it, but it was for pastoral ministry and practices or something like that.
Yeah.
And we had to like interview married couples, divorced couples, remarried couples. And so I was like, Chris, you have parents that fit into that category. And so I did like a couple phone interviews with his family.
That's crazy.
That is one thing that I think you guys should bring more into the podcast. I think you guys are really good at interviews. I think you're good at dissecting guests and asking questions that are, I don't know, like I just think you're very talented. I think you guys should add more of that to the pot. And like I said, you guys will interview in the same boat as me. Like I'm in an industry where like, sure, I can go and reach out to people who've been on TV and who have accomplished things, but I like to talk to people I care about and learn more about them. I think your approach to things is a little differently when it comes to how you interview. Like either one of you can probably interview a member of your family. Like, how you guys bring your significant others on. And I generally I'm interested because of the way you guys conduct yourselves and the way you guys like it's hard to find content where people are just being genuinely them. I think everyone who's in this content space is playing a character, or they're putting on a facade, or they think what's going to get them likes and views. And content creators like us, where it's just kind of like chatting with our buds, is not always going to be the most popular thing, because we're not rich and famous, and people are like, why should I care about them? But it is just a really wholesome piece of content, and I just think you guys should bring that in more. I think the interviews you've done in the past have been really good, and I think you should do more.
I received that feedback because I enjoy it a lot, and it is very much a skill to like get information out of somebody and keep it interesting and keep it like not surface level. Make sure like that stuff is really interesting to me. Stay tuned because you're a couple episodes behind, but we just released an episode where we interview my 16 and 18-year-old siblings-in-law. So I thought that was really interesting to hear, and
you guys interviewed a band, Mother Lion.
That was one of my favorites as well.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some times where you guys do topics and interviews. I'm like, man, I wish I was in the conversation on this one. And I'm talking to you guys through my car, or there's been times where I'll like send you some messages, be like, I just listen to pod, and I just wanted to give my feedback on it.
Always do. Always give the feedback.
Appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, I do it a lot because it's tough, man. Because when you put something out there and you're like, hey, if you guys think that was cool, do that. But a lot of people just listen to a podcast, they consume it, they enjoy it, and they move on. But they don't realize how much it means just to kind of get like that review or to get a response on social media. Be like, hey, listen to the podcast. This is like that. That's helpful. Like, I was having a pretty rough mental health for a while there. I'm not saying I'm any better, but and I had a wrestler who I really respect reach out. He's like, hey man, I listen to podcasts, and not only would I like to come on, but I listened to a couple episodes and I thought it was really good and I like what you're doing, and it helped me a lot. Like I was like, man, that meant a lot. You know what I mean? Because it's one thing though, just for people to reach out and be like, I want to be on what you're doing because I see it's getting traction and I see it's getting successful and I want to be on it just because I want to be on it. But to take time to to actually listen to the person's content and then want to be on because of what they're producing and not what their numbers are producing it's nice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like when we interviewed Mother Lion, what I felt like was we can do each other a favor here. You know, like we can share audiences, like we can make an entertaining interview for our audience and help your audience get to know you in a medium that they don't usually get to know you. And that's kind of how I feel here too, be able to provide something different, but still in line with our values.
I mean, it's funny that I said like this is not going to be not going to be a pro wrestling interview, but it's funny how connected we are because of pro wrestling. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. When ABJ launched, it was like, okay, we gotta get on that, and we gotta have him on ours because, you know, creators supporting creators is kind of like it at a certain point, you know, it's almost like, why wouldn't I help out my friend? Why wouldn't I want to collaborate with someone in the same space as us?
Yeah, it was, and you actually, speaking of reaching out and doing things, Mario actually made me a beer review one time for Banging Beers at the time, and it was probably my favorite piece of content I've ever received. Someone made a beer review and sent it to me, and it was the funniest thing ever. I think I clipped it and put it on TikTok and everything. It was just so good. You reviewed Four Loco, and you're like, tastes like blue. And you're like, this is awful, this is terrible, which is amazing. It meant a lot, but that is true, man. Just supporting each other is super key. But so now you're on season 3. You've been doing this now
Season
three. Are you doing it by year or by
Halloween's?
Okay.
That's not how you measure your seasons.
I usually start at a month, and then I just don't call it a season until the end of the next year. So like, I started in October, but that January wasn't the end of season 1. So season 1 for me will be end of 2023. Yeah. And then whatever was in the beginning of 2022 will kind of get lumped into it.
Yeah, our first episode was a Halloween episode for some reason, and so that's kind of how
many podcasts start in October, November. It's just like,
yeah. Well, that was also the time when like the number of podcasts just like skyrocketed. There was just like, it went from like a couple thousand to just millions of podcasts. It has since gone down, and we have survived. Both of us have survived. So
you did it.
Go podcast. If you're some content creators in the comments too. Congrats if you made it. The Purge.
If you guys have any questions too, or anything in the chat, or you want to, please, the chat is always open if you want to throw some comments or some questions out there. So we'll start there. As content creators, what keeps you guys hitting the record button? What keeps you guys keeping the content going? Because it's very easy to be like, you know what, today I rather go do this, or I rather not sit in front of a camera. I think I know the answer because it was probably a reason what kept me going for 4 years. But yeah, what's been your motivation?
It's just the listens, man. I just live and die by that number, you know. I just watch it.
I mean, I've said it several times on the pod that like, even if no one listened at all, it's like, this is my opportunity a week or every 2 weeks to like connect with Chris.
Yeah.
It's
Same
like,
here, man.
Even if no
having
one,
people at the table and just sitting down and connecting with people was really, really fun.
Would probably switch it up from a podcast. Like after a while, if we did get truly 0 listens, like after a while, we'd probably just switch to like, all right, let's do the phone call, like the podcast live on a phone call, just you and me. We're the audience, and then that's kind of it. But just like,
well, I'm glad you guys are keeping the record button because I enjoy the conversations, and I love when you guys rank things. I love when you guys talk what's going on in the world, and it's your takes on stuff. I'm into it, you know. And I think a lot of people will be like, once again, we're not celebrities, we're not famous people who've been on TV shows, so why should our opinion matter? But I feel like they should. Like, the everyday person should have just as much of a voice, and they're just as fun and entertaining as everybody else.
I've been on TV a number of times. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a couple appearances on PA Live once, you know.
Oh yeah, I was on. Oh my goodness, we should do that as an episode. We're gonna talk about that soon.
Did you go on TV and talk about necromancy and how you're gonna bring back dead musicians from the dead and have them rock out on stage?
I don't think so.
That went over like a fart in church. It was the host was like, "Shut this shit out." The guy.
When I was in
The guy we walked in, and obviously I dressed the way I dress, and I was with other members of the band, and he literally looked at us and walked in with his like morning TV show suit and tie. And he's like, "Oh, hey everybody, how you doing? Oh, glad to see these guys dressed up today." And I was like, "Fuck you."
Bye.
Yeah,
It's so fake.
He passes off. He's like,
"Wow,
you interview these guys," and he walked away, and we got somebody else, and she was way cooler anyway.
That's messed up.
Like the information's the important part, not the personalities. But so many things are just the personalities when it comes to the news. And like in the interview, he was offended by you guys for not like doing it the way he would want to, but he's forgetting he's not the subject. He's trying to get information from you.
Well, he
guys.
didn't even he didn't even interview us. He pawned this off to his
exactly
the other girl, and she thought it was
he got
funny,
so
but
in his head about how important he is, how the picture he wants, the way he wants to look.
He put extra whitening strips on to look like a fake human being, and then sit in front of a camera and put on a stupid fake voice.
I love
welcome to the news.
I love getting the clips of newscasters who don't realize they're on, and they're just talking normal like this, and then they realize that it's recording. And then they shift and they're as they've said over in this place.
That's one of the things in professional wrestling that drives me bananas. Is when you're talking to guys like, "Hey man, how you doing? Great. Oh, 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome." Like, why are you doing that? Like Howard Finkel is dead and gone. Be yourself. Come up with something original in yourself. Like, or you get on commentary and they're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to that." I'm like, just be yourself, man. Talk in your voice. But we do have a question. Hunter Dillon. This question for all three of you. What is the key to hosting and creating a good podcast? We would have no idea. Something that keeps listeners and viewers tuning in every episode. Bro, if we figure it out, we'll let you know.
I never once have tried to create a good podcast. We have had a few times where we realized that what we created wasn't very good. And so we're like, we've stopped mid podcast and be like, all right, we're just going to delete that.
And please do me a favor. When you talk about stuff and you're like, "Oh, we recorded this whole podcast and then scrapped it," as someone who listens to every episode and wants that infuriates me. I'm like, I want to listen to what you thought wasn't good. Like that drives me bananas.
Yeah. Oh, I hate sometimes we're just not jiving, you know.
Sometimes people like when they create paywalls and Patreons and stuff for like extra content. Usually it's like extra good content. We could probably make a Patreon where you're paying money to listen to your get worse content. Yeah,
I would pay $5 for what you deemed as your worst content, and I'd probably love it. I'd probably
our very first episode. Our very first episode, when we were like, we should try a podcast, we did a whole episode about circumcision.
And I still think we should put that one up.
100%. Once
it was weird, man.
No better way to get to know somebody is by either talking about or seeing each other's wieners. You know what I mean? Like it just breaks down barriers.
Yeah.
Oh wow, your parents mutilated you too? Cool. But no, to the actual question, at least from my point of view, is create something that you would enjoy. Because at the end of the day, even if something's a hit and it's a huge success, if you hate doing it, you're gonna hate the success. Yeah, you're gonna hate that you feel obligated to do this thing you dislike. So hopefully you're not so unique that you're the only person in the world that'll enjoy it. Chances are other people like things you like. So if you create something you like, you'll find an audience.
Yeah. That's dude, especially in the wrestling space, everyone's like, "Oh, you should do this and talk about this and that or make this type of content." I'm like, that's what every other person's doing, and it looks boring. Like it doesn't stand out. It doesn't stick to me. And they're like, "Yeah, but that's what's going to get your views." I'm like, well, then I don't want the views, because if that gets me popular, then I have to stick with that. And I don't want, and then I'm not going to enjoy what I'm making, and then it's going to be a chore every time, and I'm going to hate it.
Yeah,
cam right here.
Nice.
Yeah, but for example, like we did the beer podcast, and we put a lot of thought and effort into what the beer podcast was going to be. And the first thing I said is, we're not going to be a frat boy beer podcast. We're not going to be shotgunning beers. We're not going to be going to places and getting blackout drunk and being that guy. Because if that's what gets us popular, guess what's going to happen every time we walk into a bar? We're going to have to be that person. Right. And I'm not prepared for that.
Yeah. Be real. That's it. Like we dabbled already, you know, just be who you are. And that doesn't make it popular, but it makes it good. Like, you can't guarantee people are going to listen to it, but I think it can be. It's better than faking it. That's for sure.
100%. Dave says, "What is your favorite episode that you've recorded so far?"
Oh, Suddenly, I can't remember any of our episodes.
When you had the
I
Truth
love-
Behind Illusion crew on it, we talked spooky stuff.
Very good.
No, I
Very
hated
good.
having that podcast. I'm glad that one's dead. No, I really enjoyed.
Me too. At some point, got me in a lot of trouble.
I enjoyed our. So we have two different styles. We have like a shooting the breeze podcast where we kind of come to the table with topics, but we see where the conversation goes. But then we have stylized ones like our presents episodes where it's a unifying theme throughout. And I enjoyed the love episode that we did around Valentine's Day 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And that was actually fun to go down that rabbit hole of past relationships. And then the one that meant the most to me was our bullying episode.
Yeah, that was a good one too. I remember, I believe it was one of the episodes, and I reached out to Chris. I believe Mario. I definitely reached out to Mario, but I don't know if I reached out to Chris. But I don't know if I put it in the group chat. But you told a story how you were at a restaurant and you went and ordered food, and then you walked in the restaurant and everything went wrong. Like the food was wrong, they did everything wrong, and you got pissed and you walked out and you walked home and you left all the food there and you were frustrated. And then you got home and your girl kind of like, yo, well, are we gonna eat? Like, what are we gonna do here? And then you kind of like sat there and you're like, yo, they're working hard. They probably got busy. Mistakes happen. You calm down. And instead of just being like, F it, I'm gonna move on with my day and all things will be forgiven. You swallowed that pride, you swallowed your feelings, and you went back and you're like, hey guys, I'm really sorry that I did that. And I'm not here for the food or whatever. I mean, I'd like to have my food, but I'm really, really sorry that I kind of came in here and acted the way I acted. And then behind the counter, they're like, dude, that they were so numb to it, I guess you were
They
saying.
didn't even realize who it was.
Yeah. But and then I had a moment as well where something similar happened to me and I got frustrated and I started snapping out. And I remembered that story and it made me calm down for a second. And I was like, listen, I'm sorry I'm snapping on you. I'm just having a shitty day and I shouldn't be projected on you. And that was something I learned from the podcast is maybe just take a step back, breathe. And another thing I kind of learned from you guys too is have a conversation. Is tell people how you feel and tell people what you went through and tell people what you're feeling. And if they still don't respond to it, then you can handle things differently or maybe cut people off, even if they're really close to you. But just to step back for a second and have the conversation and not react with pure emotion like I've been doing for 30 some years of my life is always not the right way to go about things.
It's crazy when you're in your 30s. That's when you start to look back and like, all right, I've kind of screwed that first 30 up. How do I do this next 30?
Yeah. my mental trauma that I ever went through has just made me a complete monster, and everyone around me either hates me or fears me. I don't want. Yeah. That's
something that we want to happen in the podcast is, and episode 13, we were guest on a podcast called Podcast Tactics, and it was a guy who just interviewed people who were doing podcasts, and he has since stopped making podcasts. We outlived him. And, yeah. But one of the things he said, which kind of became one of our missions, was after he listened to our podcast, he called an old friend and like just to check in, see how things were going. And if people do that after listening to us talk, like I can't imagine a better thing we could be doing. So that was really big. I would say if you're like trying to check out, listen to us, the Backies are a fun tradition of ours. It's our yearly, award show where we give out, the Backies or the awards.
I was in the middle of listening to that and I didn't finish it, so I don't know who
yeah.
won this one. Well, you can get into it if you want to talk about who won some awards.
Sure.
No, check out the episode.
That's true. We don't want to give it away. I'll tell you that a tradition is that we fight over who deserves Person of the Year, and so that's something you can look forward to.
Person of the Year is okay. So Chris likes structure, right?
So who are the nominees for Person of the Year?
Everyone
Burke Kreischer is always nominated, and then we just argue. It's like,
so who did you bring to the table for your nominees for Person of the Year?
My goodness, it starts the very first year we did this.
Yeah,
it was January 2021. I nominated Dolly Parton. Do you know what she does? She invested in a vaccine research. She invests in bringing people out of poverty and illiteracy in Appalachia. Amazing woman. And Mario said, "You sure? That's true." And Mario says, Bert Kreischer.
I know.
And And then I realized we are approaching Person of the Year in a fundamentally different way.
Hey, the pandemic had hit. Stand-up comedy, my favorite thing to watch, had come to a screeching halt, and he figured out a way to keep it alive through the revolutionary idea of setting up stages at drive-in movie theaters and doing a tour that way. Because all the clubs are closed, all the venues are closed, and he solved the problem.
He just wanted to go drink and not be at home, though.
Amen, brother. And he put out a special that year. His podcast was blowing up like crazy. That's why I nominated him. He was having such an amazing year. That's why I wanted to give him the thing. But
all right,
needs people to help others.
I guess I'm asking for a little bit of a spoiler, but who are some people that were put on the table here for 2023?
Dark Brandon.
Yeah.
Joe Biden. That's who I threw up first.
I believe I brought NASA to the table. Not a person, but NASA had a really good year. James Webb Telescope year, the DART mission, lots of cool stuff at NASA.
Yeah.
Neither of those nominees won.
Bert Kreischer, clean sweep.
Yeah, apparently.
Actually,
in
I didn't
2021 we
year.
didn't give one away. In 2021 we gave it to the backers because we couldn't agree.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who I put as
the first time we did Bert Kreischer. The second time I nominated Bert Kreischer. This is the first year I didn't.
You know who I would nominate this year?
Tell me.
Only because this podcast it reminds me of used to a lot, and it's funny because I feel like even if you're not an athlete or a sports fan, I think their podcast is really interesting and really good. I think New Heights, the Kelsey brothers, had a really good podcast. And dude, talk about a podcast that led to the pinnacle, right? So it's two brothers who really don't get to spend a lot of time with each other, who don't get to talk a lot, who don't have the interaction. They came together more than they said in their entire lives. They reconnected through a podcast, which is essentially Welcome Back, but two brothers. And then these two brothers go on and face each other for the first time ever as two brothers in the Super Bowl. And they even he won the Super Bowl, and he literally without shamelessly plugging his podcast, he's like, yo, I feel I played the best year of my life in football because I was closer to the person I love the most by doing a podcast and just taking an hour or two a day just to talk to my brother and make that connection. I was like, bro, this is like the famous version of Welcome Back. You know what I mean? Like you have the two top NFL athletes doing Welcome Back, but just having fun with it. So I would name, and they're both really good people.
It sounds like a solid podcast of the year, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would give them.
The Backies, we do like 10 awards, I think.
Somewhere like that.
I also really fell in love with the Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast.
Oh yeah, that was good.
I love the show, so the podcast is right up there too.
Yeah. So we'll do awards for Song of the Year, Album of the Year, and social media streaming service. This year we introduced Flub of the Year, so like just the biggest mistake of the year. So
yeah, that was our flub of the year, is coming up with the flub one.
Yeah, one of the issues was we decided not to give a flub of the year to a person because we don't want to give an award to Kanye West. It just wasn't a good look to be giving
Will Smith had a
to
pretty
Kanye
good
West,
one.
you know? Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
That slap really did number on him.
Yeah, internationally known Welcome Back podcast. We didn't want to tarnish our brand by awarding bad actors.
Oh boy. Yeah, it was that was something. That's but so you guys are also essentially just what we were talking about, very driven by pop culture and stuff like that. Have you guys do usually at the end of each podcast you recommend a book or you recommend a movie or a television show or something like that? Have you guys ever? I know Mario. Have you ever read the book? Is this book?
I've read parts of the book.
Yeah. So okay. Chris gave you a book to read. I think season 1.
Yeah, what's the name of that book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wouldn't know. Although that's the cover is the only page I've ever seen.
I read the first 2 chapters. How to Talk Funny or something like that.
That's close.
And it's a book. It's a book about stand up by a guy. You know
where the book is right now in your house. Where is it sitting?
This is
right next to my bed. I see it every single day. I see it every single day, and I never open it.
On it when you go to sleep, like you just put your.
It's right there, but one of these days I'll read it. But I got the gist. I'm reading it. I'm like, I already know everything in this. It's kind of like my college experience. Anytime I sat down and listened to these professors talk, I'm like, you're not telling me anything new.
Yeah,
who are you? Who are you to try to tell me about philosophy? I've thought thoughts before.
Yeah. Another episode that I listened and I was like, some of the picks were rough. I was telling him the you guys picking horror movies, especially as non-horror movie fans.
Yeah.
Who that was rough. That was
we
hard.
weren't picking horror movies.
Yeah,
we were designing
ranking the
a
best.
Halloween movie marathon.
Yeah,
That's the key.
I would cancel my subscription of whatever if that was some of your picks. Oh my goodness, I can't even go back and remember some of them, but they were rough.
I'm thinking about it now that we've talked beforehand. They were pretty good picks all around because we created a structure because we know there's going to be a time at night where the marathon starts. Everyone's going to be awake. Then the kiddies go to bed,
spooky.
and you have a little tradition.
They
And
were
then
like
by the end,
Halloween Town and shit.
One thing about Mario, he will double down. One thing about Mario.
My last one was, I think, Terrifier was my last one.
Yeah, that was a good pick. That was actually I would definitely lean.
You don't
more
start
towards
your
list.
6 p.m. movie marathon with Terrifier.
Yeah, with a girl getting chainsawed down the middle of her
Yeah.
body to her forehead.
Start with the family, then something funny, then something horrifying.
I would love to watch a really gruesome, fucked up horror movie with Chris. I think that'd be joyous because I just feel like that's not your wheelhouse at all of style of movies.
I like good storytelling in no matter what form it's in. If it's a good storytelling, I'll watch it.
What is something you watched recently?
I've never watched anything in my life.
I just finished The Walking Dead. Incredible.
The TV show?
Yeah.
I gave up on
Loved
that.
it.
I gave up on
Me
that.
too. And then I came back, and I'm glad I did.
I read the books, and I don't want to sound like that person, but I read the comics, and
Sure.
it did not translate to the TV show for me.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I'm watching Lost for the third time.
Why would you do that to yourself?
It's so good. You don't understand.
But it ends so bad.
That's made up. Don't listen to that propaganda. Watch it again.
Mario, have you seen Black Panther yet?
Wakanda Forever? No, not yet.
Oh my god.
Quite
I
good.
think, man, I don't really watch anything new.
I cried like a baby.
Emily and I were watching Vampire Diaries for the first time.
Heidi was into that for a while, and then she watched like the spin-off show.
I'm trying to get Emily to watch Dragon Ball Z with me.
Ooh.
Actually, I watched the originals, the spinoff to the Vampire Diaries first. I didn't realize it was a spinoff.
Who's the guy with the really bad plastic surgery who looks like this the whole show? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I have no idea who you're talking about.
He has like the worst plastic surgery, and his eyebrows literally do this the whole time. He's just like, I'm a vampire, like, and it's not even like the makeup. That's just how his face looks.
Oh, that's probably Damon from the
Yeah.
Vampire Diaries.
All the girls are like, he's so hot. I'm like, he looks like a botched surgery.
Yeah, Stefan's the hot one.
Yeah.
We just restarted Arrested Development because it's leaving Netflix.
Great show.
Solid show. My wife likes it, which I was not expecting, but she's into it, so that's great.
My guilty pleasure shows. I just put them on and rewatch them from beginning to end, and I've probably done each show 100 times, and that's the reason why I've never watched anything new. The Office is on that list.
Yeah.
Parks and Recreation on that list. Always Sunny on that list. Bob's Burgers on that list. What's another one I go through a lot, and I just put it on? Trailer Park Boys. It's so stupid, but it's funny. It's I Think You Should Leave is on that list.
Yeah, I just heard that recently.
Have you watched it yet?
Very good.
Yeah.
Speaking of The Office, are you the same type of mentally ill that Chris is, where you'll just watch it over and over?
That's literally what I just said.
Yeah, I've probably seen The Office beginning to end at least 10 times.
I don't get it. Is it
watching
because you guys are from the area? Like, is there something in the water?
Fun fact, now that like all of our water population is completely destroyed, is like now when I'm getting in the kick of drinking more water. So if I die in 2 weeks, that's probably what it is. Trying to cut back on soda and
as a test
water.
subject. That's helpful to know.
I'm just drinking tons of water, and everything's all messed up because we're just derailing trains and dumping chemicals in waters. But conspiracy corner.
Yeah, right.
I'm afraid of The Office because you don't hear from anyone who has watched The Office. It's people who do you watch The Office? You know that show that
I will
ended
say
10
this
years
right
ago?
now.
Do you watch that currently?
Yeah, it is one of the shows that I feel that when you watch season 1's a tough watch, right? Because season 1 and season 2 dramatically are not what the show ends up being.
Sure.
But when you stick through it and you go from I like season 1 and 2, and a lot of people say that they're the bad seasons because it was cringy and Michael was really weird. But like it's one of the only shows that by the end of it, every character gets a storyline. Every character you become invested in. Like who the show tries to steer you to be like, this is the main story. You still like, well, I like these two people and I like their story. Like it when I just feel like when it ended, it was a fulfilling ending for every single character on the show. And there's episodes I still cry. Like I cry too. Like I watch, I'm like, oh my God, you got me again. But I just started watching the Superfan episodes on Peacock where it's like the extended cuts. But yeah, that's on there. But I just started watching from season 1 all the way through, and it doesn't age well. It's one of those shows that like if they try to put on TV today, it would not go over well. But it's just so good.
Have you guys
Married
watched
with Children.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been going back and rewatching Married with Children, and it's Ed O'Neill's facial expressions in that show. Such a good show. I'm on season 3 right now of that.
What's been dominating my weekends is the UFC, and we're in the middle of 8 weeks straight where every weekend there's a UFC event, and I'm pretty excited. Like fight nights, the big ones.
UFC broke my heart, man.
What broke your heart?
Nobody cares, Mario.
Dana White broke my heart. He's just he's like a slumlord. And then everything he fought for to get UFC into certain states and making UFC legitimate and trying to sell everybody and how like it should be allowed in New York and it should be allowed here. And then he starts a slap company, and I'm just like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like,
I'm just waiting for that to fail.
Someone's gonna die. Like someone's gonna get severe. Like you are literally standing there, dead center, feet planted, and just let someone hit you in the head as hard. Like even UFC fighters are like, how in the same breath are you Dana White, who fought the Athletic Commission to get UFC into the state of New York, but then say that slapboxing's safe? It's not. It's not safe. It's
CTE machine.
Irresponsible. It's awful. It's not good at all. Yeah. I don't know. I don't get enjoyment of watching someone stiffen up and twitch on the ground because they took an open hand slap to the face. Like,
you know who likes that stuff?
Happens.
The people who like that stuff are the people who will watch cage fights and think it's boring when guys are wrestling or doing jiu-jitsu. Yes. Like they literally only like highlights. They don't understand.
They want to see the guy get knocked out. Like they want. It's like watching NASCAR. They don't get the.
And that's what the slap is. It's the slap thing is just a highlight reel of hits.
Yeah, it's so damaging, and I think it ruins the UFC because the guy who endorses the UFC, and then just like when they built the whole ranking system, and then the ranking system got thrown out the window because fighters were getting paid so little that champions were walking away from the sport, that people were just like, oh, all I have to do is throw a dolly through a bus window and I can get any title shot I want, even though I don't fight ever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of what UFC essentially became pro wrestling. And I was like, if I'm gonna watch pro wrestling, I might as well watch pro wrestling where it's
well, at the end of the day, they really do have to fight someone.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just like you're not getting the matchups that you should as a fight fan because it's being polluted with who talks the most trash and who can skip the ranking system because they can sell a fight better.
I disagree with you so much right now. So much right now. Because I don't just watch UFC and the number, like 284, 283. Yeah. I watch all the fight nights too. I watch the Contender Series. There's legitimate
I stopped
ninjas
for a long time. So you're probably in the boat where you're probably defending it like I was for a long time. But
oh no, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like Conor McGregor should have been released a long time ago, but he makes money.
Yep.
So like there's a delicate balance. And what's nice about so many divisions is that when a division does get flooded with the types of characters who know how to tweet right to get a fight, there's other divisions that are still, less show buddy. And at the end of it all, when you trash talk your way into a title fight, if the guy who has the title is the top in the world, then you just get to see the guy who ran his mouth get shut up for 15 minutes or less.
Yeah, absolutely.
25 minutes or less.
Can you convince me that it's not bad for society to watch people beat each other up?
So here's where I'll say where MMA is not horrible is because you have to break it down as these are people who are training and like you are defending yourself and the whole. So this is where another reason why I think UFC lost me is you had guys like Mazadov, you had guys like Conor McGregor, you had guys who you're essentially teaching a sport of discipline and you're teaching a sport of
Mazadov?
yeah, we're not Matt. What's his name? The guy who fucking swung on a dude at a restaurant and got
Don't
he
know
won
who
the
you're
bet.
talking about.
The dude with the beard and he punched that Colby dude in the face outside of a restaurant.
Oh, Jorge Masvidal. Well,
Yeah,
that's just an instance of someone who is actually like crazy
Yeah.
good at fighting.
But what I'm saying
his
is
mouth.
that here's people that you're trying to enhance a sport of showmanship and class, and at the end of the day, you're getting in a cage to fight
No.
somebody, but you keep what is happening inside that cage. But when professionals are outside fighting in the streets, how do you expect society to turn around and say, well, how do we take your sport seriously? And how do we say you're not like if you're willing to do it in the streets, then what's the point of us paying for you in the cage?
But what about the millions of people tuning in just to watch watch people hit each other? Like, can you convince me that alone isn't bad for society? And I do think this kind of applies. Definitely less so. This is
All
the best
sports.
example, but football and WWE and
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
of that certainly falls in that line.
Combat
I
has
think-
been a form of entertainment since the beginning of time.
right. And when we were feeding poor people to lions, we were like, oh, that's probably bad that we're enjoying watching that. Like,
Yeah.
Well, they're not
is it
dying
all that
anymore.
different?
You know what I mean? A little bit.
I mean,
bit,
sometimes
It's
because
a
they're-
lot. It's a lot.
Yeah,
No one
you're
has
not
ever
taking
died
some
in the
guy-
UFC octagon.
yeah. You're not taking guys who are not trained and scrawny and small, and then throwing them in there with a giant who's just destined to kill him. You know what I mean?
Is
Like,
it all that different?
absolutely.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
it's a
See,
million
I
percent
don't.
different.
I didn't think we would.
You
differ on
sound
this
like me
point.
right now by doubling down right now, Chris.
Yeah.
No, I'm still because what I mean is in the same way that the Coliseum was full of people watching violence, we are
Mhm.
tuning our television show to the show just to watch violence, and that's the part that I'm like, I'm not, and I mean I've watched it, I actively watch it sometimes,
Yeah.
but I'm not convinced that that's good for society.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
it's actually.
I'd much rather watch
good
two
for
people fight in a
society.
cage and then tell people that they can train and defend themselves and do it inside of a cage than people doing it in the streets. Once it gets in the streets, I'm not a fan of that.
But don't you think maybe watching it in the cage leads to people doing it on the streets?
Yeah, but then you can say like because you play violent video games, you're gonna go shoot up a school. It comes down to you as a person and making the right choices.
I think that watching people fight in the octagon, seeing the skill, seeing someone's boxing ability, seeing someone's wrestling ability, seeing their jujitsu or sambo.
I watch someone get choked out or knocked out cold. I go, I don't want to experience that, and I'm going to leave that to professionals.
I think that has pushed more people into exercise. It has pushed people into learning those things, going like seeking out a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym in their area, and that leads to personal development and growth because you're not just like if I got up and I started going to these special gyms, it's not like I'm going to start fighting people in the street. Now I have someone who's teaching me how to do this. I'm learning to respect others.
What happens a lot too, and because I do spend a lot of time in bars. A lot of people start shooting their mouth off in a bar. They literally stop and go, "I'm going to shut the fuck up because I don't know if this dude is a black belt or something." You know what I mean? Like because everyone's training now, like or knows something, so everyone's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to get into a fight. This guy's going to choke me out in front of the whole bar, and I'm like an idiot." You know what I mean? Like
the societal inequality that is removed from professional fighting versus the Coliseum is why I think it's not bad for society. What's bad for I mean if they just started like rounding up homeless people and like, oh, you want a house, you want somewhere to live, beat this guy up, you know.
That was a thing for a while in the 90s. There was a website.
Oh, bum fights, yeah.
Yeah, man, that was sad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I remember watching that. I was like, this is crazy.
And
I watched a dude hit another dude with a stop sign and split him wide open. It was gross.
Yeah.
That's why you need rules. That's why you need Herb Dean right in the middle of the octagon calling it.
Love that
guy. So we're getting close to the end here. If anyone has any other questions, please put them in the chat. But I want to end this the way you guys kind of end this with some recommendations. Give me some recommendations of things that people should go check out.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we haven't recommended anything in a while.
I know, but I like how you said that.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I recommend reaching out to your friends.
That's what he does when he doesn't have one.
Like reconnecting, hitting up your buddies, and whether it's to do something like Chris and I have done of creating a project to stay continually with each other, or just to catch up Because there's people you meet in your life who are there and then gone, but you can keep them around as much as you want. You to touch base, and they'd appreciate it. It might feel like, well, they haven't reached out to me. Yeah, well, if no one reaches out to anyone, then we'll all hate each other. But if you can be that person who takes that step and say, yeah, they haven't reached out to me, but just like me, I haven't reached out to them. I have a busy life. They probably have a busy life. Find out what's going on in their busy life. Even if it's you talk to them one time and then you don't talk to that person again for another 3 years. That's what I recommend.
Love that. Chris.
Okay. I'm going to recommend communication then, because people don't, conflict is like everywhere, right? You have conflict with your mom and your sister and your spouse, your partner. I find nobody that just knows how to talk about their problems. They love to talk to other people about their problems, but like, this is what I say all the time. Gentleness and firm boundaries. This is how we need to interact as human beings, with gentleness and firm boundaries. When we have a conflict, I need to come to somebody and say, hey, what you're saying to me makes me feel a certain way, whatever. I'm going to have gentleness. And if they don't respect it, I'm going to have firm boundaries and say, well, if we can't do that, then I'm out of here. I just can't hear another person tell me why they're upset with somebody. And I said, well, what did you say to them? And they said, oh, nothing. Yeah. They have no idea that you have this problem. And so communication, that is my recommendation.
These
are cop outs.
Yeah.
Also, I recommend the song Wait in the Truck by Hardy. That's a pretty good song. And the movie Nope. That's a real good one.
I just watched that the other day.
I'm going to recommend The Woman King because it was incredible and is coming back into some theaters because it was a fan favorite.
Wasn't that the movie that completely lied about everything, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. Amen.
Like the actual Woman King was like a horrible person.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. They did. Someone did research and like, wait a second.
Like the vast majority of people in history.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Problematic.
Yeah.
Pantsuit Politics. I love that podcast, so check them out.
I've never listened to it. I gotta check it out.
Check it out.
I'm gonna recommend Welcome Back. I think you guys should go check out Welcome Back. Anywhere you find podcasts, check out Welcome Back. I have been fighting them tooth and nail to make a video version of that, but no go yet. I've been trying to say, if you just go in here and talk audio-wise to each other, and then just edit the video, and then just pull the audio off it, you're doing the same thing, and you get double the content.
That's true. We spend $0 on our podcast.
I don't like people looking at us.
You would spend $0 using this because I would give you the information. Even though there's not a network, I still support you guys through and through. And if you needed it, it's here.
When we start the Diablo Brothers media conglomeration, we'll invite you into it.
The joke was that you're gonna secede from IWP and start your own thing, and now IWP. So I'm joining your team. You know, I'm leeching off the back of you guys. You know what I mean?
We'll start our own podcast network with blackjack and hookers. You know what? Forget the podcast network.
I'm in. You had me at hookers. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Episode 31. Make sure you check the links below. And like I said, follow Welcome Back on all social media. Welcome Back Wire. Also, anywhere you find podcasts, the Welcome Back. Give them a review. Tell them that you heard them from the ABJ podcast and start listening. You can listen their most recent episode, or you can go back and listen to the past content. They're 3 seasons in. They're 70, 80 episodes around that mark.
We just recorded the 80th.
Yeah, so it's not too far, and you can go back and support them. They're great dudes. I endorse them so much. Like I said, you'll listen to them, and you want to become a better person, and then you'll also laugh. You'll laugh the pain away with them.
Nice.
And if you're watching this because you came over from our channel and this is your first experience with Anthony Blackwell Jr., the ABJ podcast, he's a great follow. He's a great interviewer. Be sure to follow here if you haven't already.
Thank you so much, guys. I love you guys to death. We're going to get out of here. I'll see you guys next on this Thursday when I bring in Shelby Waters to the podcast, local independent wrestler, just starting her upside. We'll talk about her cool tattoos, her blue hair, and how one time on commentary I said she's going to bring in the blue wave. And then the next week, it actually happened. The red wave did not happen because the red trickle happened because of Shelby Waters and my commentary. And then we're ending the month with Adina Steele. So definitely check out this month. All of next month is already completely booked up, which is exciting. And I think in April, I'm going to dial back to 1 episode a month instead of 2 a week. Or not 1 a month, sorry. 1 a
Jeez.
week and not 2 a week.
We're going to go from 10 episodes a month to 1.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I was literally like 10, 15. Like by the end of the year, I'm going to have 100 pieces of content out. And it's like, do I keep pushing that? But I'll probably end up doing it because my work ethic is insane and I hate myself. But like I said, tons of more stuff coming. If you can, like I said, go grab a t-shirt, throw a donation out there, support the Patreon. I'm really, really close to hitting that goal of where I need to be to get to my equipment. And I want to get those cameras so I can record and do stuff in other places. And one of these days, boys, I'm coming up to that Pittsburgh area. We're going to sit and do this in person.
Let's go.
Sounds good to me.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Here's some Billy Trey. And we'll see you guys on Thursday for the ABJ Podcast 32.
We'll be.
Gotta do it.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.